What happens when one of country music's most beloved stars sits down for what should be a routine promotional interview, only to find herself defending not just her career, but her entire family legacy? That's exactly what happened when Wynonna Judd appeared on Today with Jenna and Friends, in what quickly turned from a simple morning show segment into one of the most uncomfortable moments in live television history. What began as a promotional stop for her new album ended in an explosive confrontation that left producers scrambling and viewers stunned as Wynonna abruptly walked off set. It started like any other morning at Studio 1A. Wynonna arrived early, her signature red hair perfectly styled, dressed in a flowing black blouse that was equal parts elegant and rebellious. She was there to promote her latest album, a deeply personal collection she'd described as her most vulnerable work yet. The plan was simple: a 20-minute chat with Jenna Hager and her rotating co-hosts, a few stories about life on the road, and then a live performance of her new single. But from the moment Wynonna settled into her chair, something felt off. Jenna's usual warmth was missing, her demeanor oddly tense, her smile just a little too forced. The first few questions hinted that this wouldn't be a typical light-hearted interview. And when Jenna nervously shuffled her notes before asking, "Your new album deals with some pretty heavy themes: loss, addiction, family dysfunction. Some critics have said you're exploiting your mother's death and your family's struggles for commercial gain. How do you respond to that?" The energy in the studio shifted completely. The question landed like a thunderclap. Wynonna's jaw tightened, though her voice stayed calm. "Well, Jenna," she began evenly, "I think anyone who knows me, anyone who's followed my journey, understands that music has always been my way of processing pain. When Mama died, I didn't know how else to deal with it except through song. This isn't exploitation. This is survival." The audience was quiet, but Jenna pressed on, her expression sharpening as if she sensed an opportunity. "Some people say you've made a career out of being the troubled daughter of Naomi Judd," she continued. "Your struggles with weight, with relationships, with your half-sister Ashley's success. At what point does sharing become oversharing?" Wynonna's expression hardened. This was not the interview she'd been promised. Her publicist had reassured her it would be a safe, supportive space to talk about her music, not an ambush. "I'm sorry, but I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding here," Wynonna replied, her tone turning firm, the same protective edge fans had heard when she used to defend her mother. "I came here to talk about my music, not to be psychoanalyzed on morning television." Still, Jenna didn't relent. If anything, she seemed energized by Wynonna's visible discomfort. "The thing is," Jenna said, leaning in, "your personal life has always been part of your brand, the comeback kid, the survivor, the one who persevered despite all the family drama. But now that your mother's gone, now that you're the last Judd standing, are you worried that without that pain to draw from, you might not have anything left to say?" The silence that followed was thick enough to cut through. Even the seasoned production crew froze. Wynonna leaned forward, gripping the armrests of her chair until her knuckles whitened. "The last Judd standing," she repeated, her voice low but trembling with emotion. "Did you just say that?" Jenna, perhaps realizing too late the cruelty in her phrasing, tried to clarify, with your mother's passing and Ashley focusing on her acting and activism. You're really the only one continuing the family's musical legacy. But the damage was done. The pain flickered across Wynonna's face before she slowly stood up. Cameras caught her shaking her head as she said quietly, "I've had enough." Then she walked off set, leaving Jenna stunned, the audience speechless, and the producers in chaos. What was supposed to be a simple interview had instead peeled back years of grief and family tension live on national television. The last Judd standing. Wynonna repeated, her voice trembling with disbelief. "Did you just say that?" Jenna, seemingly oblivious to the storm she was stirring, tried to clarify. But before she could speak again, Wynonna's eyes flashed with pain. "My mother didn't pass, Jenna," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "My mother killed herself. She took her own life because she couldn't live with the pain anymore. And sitting here, listening to you reduce our family's tragedy to some kind of marketing strategy, I'm starting to understand why she felt so alone." The words hit the studio like a physical blow. Jenna's co-host, who had been silent up until that point, shifted uncomfortably in her seat. The cameras kept rolling, but the tension was so thick it seemed to radiate through the television screens of millions of viewers. Wynonna. "I didn't mean to," Jenna began. But Wynonna cut her off sharply, raising a hand. "No, you know what? You did mean to. You and whoever produced this ambush knew exactly what you were doing. You think because I'm grieving, because I'm vulnerable right now, that makes me an easy target. You think you can sit there in your perfect little television studio and dissect my family's pain like it's some kind of entertainment." Her voice grew stronger with every word as she pushed back her chair and stood up, her tall frame imposing even under the bright, artificial lights of the morning show set. The microphone clipped to her blouse crackled with feedback as she moved. "I've been in this business for over 30 years, and I've seen a lot. I've battled addiction, I've had my heart broken, I've buried my mother, and watched my family fall apart. But I have never experienced anything as cruel and calculated as what just happened here." Jenna's composure began to crack. Her media training kicked in as she tried to salvage the interview, her voice adopting that overly calm tone television hosts use when a situation is spiraling out of control. "Wynonna, please, let's just take a breath," she said carefully. "I think we may have gotten off on the wrong foot. Why don't you sit back down and we can start over?" But Wynonna wasn't having it. She remained standing, her presence filling the small interview space like a thundercloud about to burst. "Start over," she repeated, her tone incredulous. "You think we can just start over after what you said about my mama? After you called me the last Judd standing like I'm some kind of sole survivor of a plane crash?" Her voice rose, the raw Kentucky edge she'd spent years softening for the mainstream cutting through every word. The younger co-host, clearly out of her depth, leaned toward Jenna and whispered nervously, "Maybe we should go to commercial." But her microphone picked it up, and her suggestion echoed across the studio and out to the entire audience. Wynonna turned to her sharply. "Oh no, don't you dare go to commercial," she said, her voice low but fierce. "Don't you dare try to hide what just happened here. You want to talk about my family's business on national television? Then let's talk about it. Let's really talk about it." She began pacing in the narrow space between her chair and the interview desk, her movements tense and charged. "You want to know about dysfunction? You want to know about family drama?" She continued, her words coming faster, heavier. "Let me tell you what dysfunction really looks like. Dysfunction is watching your mother battle mental illness for decades while the industry that made millions off our voices pretended not to notice. Dysfunction is smiling for cameras while your family is breaking behind closed doors. Dysfunction is surviving the kind of pain that people like you only turn into talking points for ratings." Her voice cracked, but she didn't stop. "You want to call me the last Judd standing? Fine, I'll own that. Because standing is the hardest damn thing I've ever had to do." By now, the studio was silent, except for Wynonna's voice and the hum of the cameras. Jenna sat frozen, her usual poise completely gone. The co-host's eyes darted toward the control booth, but no one moved to cut the feed. The rawness of the moment had gone beyond television. It was something real, painful and utterly human unfolding in front of millions. Wynonna took one final breath, her voice lowering to almost a whisper. "This interview's over," she said. "And you can make of that whatever story you want." Then, without another glance back, she unclipped her microphone, placed it on the desk. and walked off set, leaving behind a stunned studio, a shaken host, and a nation that had just witnessed heartbreak turn to defiance in real time. Dysfunction, Wynonna said, her voice steady but laced with fury, is having every family fight, every personal struggle, every moment of pain turned into tabloid headlines and television segments just like this one. Jenna looked off camera, her expression desperate as she searched for help from her producers. But they were frozen. This wasn't the kind of television crisis they knew how to fix. This wasn't a wardrobe malfunction or a technical glitch. This was raw human emotion, live and unfiltered. Wynonna, I understand you're upset, but we're live right now, Jenna began, her voice trembling slightly. Wynonna turned to face her fully, eyes blazing. I know we're live, Jenna, she said sharply. That's exactly why I'm not sitting back down. Because for once, for the first time in 30 years, I'm going to say exactly what I think, without some publicist or manager or record executive telling me to smile and play nice. Asterisk, her voice cracked, but the words kept coming, pouring out like water bursting through a dam. You asked me about exploiting my mother's death? You want to know who exploited my mother's death? Every single person who knew she was struggling and said nothing. Every industry executive who saw the warning signs and looked the other way because the Judds were still selling records and concert tickets. Every journalist who wrote glowing stories about our comeback tours, without ever asking why we kept breaking up in the first place. The studio was so quiet you could hear the air conditioning humming through the vents. Even the camera operators seemed frozen, caught between professionalism and empathy, unsure whether to keep filming or look away from something so heartbreakingly real. Asterisk, my mother called me the night before she died, Wynonna continued, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried across the entire studio. She said she was tired. Not physically tired, tired in her soul. Tired of pretending everything was okay when nothing was okay. Tired of being Naomi Judd, the survivor, the comeback queen, the inspiration to millions. She just wanted to be a woman who was hurting, but nobody would let her be that. Asterisk, Jenna's polished composure was unraveling now, her eyes wide, her face pale. Whatever she'd expected from this interview, it wasn't this, not the grief, not the anger. Not the truth laid bare in front of her audience. And now you sit here, Wynonna continued, her tone sharper now, in your pretty studio, with your perfect hair and your media training. And you ask me if I'm worried about running out of material now that she's gone? You want to know what I'm worried about? I'm worried that her death won't change a damn thing. I'm worried that the same industry that chewed her up and spit her out will do the same thing to me. And I'm terrified that 5 years from now, some other host on some other show will sit across from some other grieving daughter and ask the same heartless questions you just asked me. Asterisk, the younger co-host finally spoke up, her voice shaky and uncertain. Wynonna, maybe we could talk about your music instead. Your new album, it's called Healing Highway, isn't it? Wynonna let out a hollow, bitter laugh that contained no trace of humor. Healing Highway, she repeated softly. You know what that title really means? It means I'm still trying to find my way out of the wreckage. It means that even after all these years, after all the therapy, the treatment, the soul-searching, I'm still looking for a road that leads somewhere other than pain. She turned back to Jenna then, her anger softening just enough to reveal something deeper, almost pity. But you wouldn't understand that, would you, Jenna? You've never had to wonder if your pain was authentic enough for public consumption. You've never had to smile and perform your trauma for strangers, who think they own your story because they bought your records. Asterisk, Jenna tried once more to regain control, her voice gentle, almost pleading. Wynonna, I want you to know that wasn't our intention today. We brought you here because we respect your artistry and your journey. If the questions came across as insensitive, That was never our goal. Wynonna shook her head slowly, a weary smile curving her lips. Your goal, Jenna, she said quietly, was ratings. Your goal was to get me to break down on camera so you could have your viral moment for social media. Well, congratulations, you got what you wanted. She reached down and unclipped her microphone. The sharp snap of the clasp echoing through the studio speakers like a gunshot. Then she looked back at Jenna one last time. But here's the thing about breaking people down for entertainment, she said. Sometimes they don't break the way you expect them to. Sometimes they break forward instead of backward. Sometimes they break into something stronger. Asterisk, she placed the microphone gently on the desk, as if setting down something fragile, something sacred. Wynonna, please don't go, Jenna said, standing up now, her voice trembling with regret. We can talk about this. We can work through this together. But Wynonna was already walking toward the edge of the set, her long black blouse trailing behind her like a cape. Just before she reached the cameras, she paused and turned back one final time. Her expression calm but resolute, the look of a woman who had been through hell and decided. She would never let anyone make her feel small again. Work through this together, Jenna said, her voice carrying a tone of disbelief that cut through the studio air. Jenna, you don't even know me, Wynonna shot back, her voice trembling with emotion. You've never called to check on me after my mother died. You've never once asked how I'm really doing. The only reason I'm standing here right now is because your producers thought my grief would make good television. The co-host, clearly out of her depth, tried desperately to salvage the moment. But Wynonna, your fans are watching. They love you. They want to hear from you. Wynonna's expression softened slightly at the mention of her fans, but the steel in her voice never faded. My fans, she repeated. You think my fans want to watch me get ambushed and humiliated on morning television? My fans have been with me through addiction, through heartbreak, through every ugly chapter of my life. They don't need you to exploit my pain to feel connected to me. Asterisk, she stepped closer to the cameras, her voice calm but commanding. As if she were speaking directly into every living room in America. If my fans are watching this, and I know some of you or I want you to know something. This isn't who I am. This anger, this hurt, this defensiveness. This isn't the woman who sang Mama, He's Crazy with My Mother all those years ago. But it's the woman I've had to become to survive in a world that thinks trauma is content and grief is a marketing opportunity. Jenna was frantically gesturing to someone off camera, likely trying to get the producers to cut to commercial. But no one moved. The crew seemed frozen, caught between shock and awe, as if realizing they were witnessing something that would be replayed and analyzed for years. Asterisk, you know what the saddest part is? Wynonna continued, her gaze shifting between Jenna and the cameras. My mother would have handled this better than I am right now. Even at her lowest points, even when the depression was so bad she couldn't get out of bed, she would have found a way to turn this into something beautiful. She would have found the grace in this moment that I'm clearly lacking. Wynonna, you're not lacking anything, Jenna said softly, and for the first time, there was real emotion in her voice. You're hurting, and that's understandable. Don't, Wynonna snapped, pointing a trembling finger at the host. Don't you dare try to therapize me now. Don't try to make this about healing or understanding or any of that talk show psychology garbage. You created this situation. You brought me here under false pretenses and then tried to dissect my family's tragedy for entertainment. Own that. Asterisk, the silence that followed was suffocating. Even the hum of the studio lights felt loud in the stillness. I've spent my entire career being told what to say, how to say it, when to smile, when to cry, when to be vulnerable, and when to be strong. Wynonna continued, her voice breaking slightly. And you know what that got me? A front row seat to watching my mother destroy herself, trying to be everything to everyone except herself. Her voice cracked completely now, raw with pain. She died believing her pain was only valuable if it could inspire someone else. She died thinking her worth was tied to her ability to overcome, to rise above, to be an example. And here you are, 3 years later, asking me the same questions, expecting the same performance. Jenna opened her mouth to respond, but Wynonna held up her hand, stopping her cold. "I'm not my mother, Jenna," she said firmly. "I don't have her grace or her ability to find light in the darkness. What I have is a voice, and today, I'm using it to say what she never could. Stop turning our pain into your profit. Stop making our worst moments into your best ratings. Stop pretending that exploitation is empowerment." She looked around the studio, taking in the cameras, the lights. The crew members who stood motionless, caught between empathy and disbelief. "I came here to talk about music," she said quietly. "I came here to share songs that helped me survive the worst period of my life. Instead, I got ambushed by someone who thinks grief is a good angle for a morning show segment." She started walking toward the edge of the set, her boots clicking sharply against the studio floor when Jenna's voice called after her. "Wynonna, wait. Can we at least end this on a positive note for your fans?" Wynonna stopped and turned one last time, her expression calm but resolute. "You want a positive note?" she said steadily. "Here's your positive note. I survived. Despite everything that's happened, despite losing the most important person in my world, despite sitting through this travesty of an interview, I survived. And tomorrow, I'll wake up and I'll keep surviving. Not because it makes good television, but because that's what my mother would have wanted." She unclipped the battery pack from her microphone and set it down gently on the table beside her. Then she looked directly into the camera one last time. "And for my fans who are watching this, remember something. Your pain is not content. Your struggles are not entertainment. Your healing doesn't have to happen in public for it to be real. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is walk away." With that, Wynonna Judd turned her back on the cameras, the hosts, and the entire Today Show production, walking off set as the click of her boots echoed through the stunned silence. The cameras kept rolling for several seconds, capturing Jenna's pale, shaken face and the chaos erupting behind the scenes as producers scrambled to figure out what to do next. It was live television at its rawest, unscripted, uncomfortable, and utterly real. Millions of viewers watched in silence as one of country music's biggest legends refused to play by the rules that had defined her for 3 decades.